Spain, land of sunshine, beaches, and effortless beauty. For decades, it was Europe's dream retirement, a place where life felt slower, warmer, freer. But behind those postcard views, a different story is unfolding. In 2015, renting a small apartment in Barcelona cost €650 a month. Today, that same flat can easily reach €1,300. Salaries, meanwhile, have barely moved. Families now spend half their income just to keep a roof over their heads, if they can find one at all. And as rents rise, anger simmers. Graffiti covers stone walls. Tourists go home. Protesters march with cardboard signs shouting at busloads of visitors. Not because they hate them, but because their own cities no longer feel like home. Spain's charm still shines, but for many Spaniards, paradise has turned into pressure. How did this Mediterranean dream twist into a struggle to survive? To understand that, you need to see how decades of choices, economic gambles, political experiments, and unchecked tourism rewired the nation from the inside out. At first glance, Spain looks unstoppable. Millions of visitors fill hotels every summer. Bars overflow. Developers announce new projects. Headlines boast of recovery and growth. But life for locals tells another story. In major cities like Madrid and Barcelona, rents have shot up faster than any other Western European capital. Families that once owned small apartments are forced to move to distant suburbs, watching the neighborhoods they grew up in turn into holiday playgrounds. In Barcelona, 1 in 4 residents is now foreign. Corner bakeries that survived entire generations have vanished, replaced by endless souvenir shops and Airbnb locks on every door. Across the country, living costs rise even as wages stagnate. And here's the paradox. 14% of all homes in Spain sit empty. Nearly 4 million apartments without residents in a nation where millions can't afford one. A country full of vacant homes and citizens sleeping 2 to a room. How did that happen? To find the answer, we have to go back to a time when home ownership wasn't about profit, it was about survival. In the 1950s, dictator Francisco Franco ruled over a nation scarred by war and isolation. Spain was poor, rural, and locked out of Europe's booming post-war economy. Most people lived off small farms, earning barely enough to live. Moving to the cities required special government permission. When the industrial era finally arrived, demand for workers forced the regime to relax those rules. By the 1960s, millions fled rural life, flooding towns and expanding cities almost overnight. To house them, Franco's ministers approved vast stretches of low-cost apartment blocks, cramped, grey and cheap, but reachable for ordinary families. For the first time, working-class Spaniards felt stability. Owning a home was no longer a dream, it was expected. Banks offered generous loans. Politicians treated homeowners as the backbone of a new middle class. By 1970, the majority of families owned their homes. And with that came a shift in mentality. A house wasn't just a place to live, it became a symbol of pride, proof that you were succeeding. But when democracy returned and Spain opened to global markets, that pride morphed into something more dangerous, an obsession. Houses became financial assets, not shelters. Families began to buy second and third properties, convinced prices could never fall. And as history always shows, once an entire nation believes something can only ever go up, a crash is already on its way. When Spain joined the European Union and adopted the euro, credit poured in like never before. Foreign banks were eager to lend, and Spanish developers were eager to build. Cranes ruled the skyline, highways stretched across empty fields, whole towns appeared almost overnight. Between 2000 and 2009, Spain built more homes than France, Germany, and the UK combined. 5 million in less than a decade. The economy boomed, jobs multiplied, unemployment fell to single digits for the first time in memory. Blue-collar workers drove new cars and economists applauded the Spanish miracle. But beneath that glitter, everything rested on sand. The boom wasn't driven by need, it was driven by debt. People weren't buying homes to live in, they were buying to flip. Banks handed out loans to everyone, betting that prices would keep climbing. Then came 2008, and like that, the miracle disappeared. The global financial crash hit Spain like a tsunami. Credit vanished, projects halted mid-construction, and entire neighborhoods turned into ghost towns. Unemployment exploded, from 8% to over 20% in less than 2 years. Families who once felt rich lost everything. Banks repossessed thousands of homes, developers vanished overnight, concrete skeletons of unfinished apartments baked under the sun, silent reminders of unchecked optimism. But this wasn't a storm Spain could wait out. The damage sank into the economy itself. Wages froze, youth unemployment soared, and those who still owned homes carried mountains of debt with falling property values. For most nations, the recession ended in a decade. For Spain, it never truly stopped. Those empty houses scattered across the countryside were more than ruins. They were scars. Yet, instead of rebuilding from the ground up, Spain looked for a faster fix. That fix would reshape everything again. When construction collapsed, policymakers turned to the one industry still booming: tourism. Spain already had what the world wanted: sun, sea, and culture. Millions of cheap apartments sat ready to rent. So they leaned in. Airlines slashed fares, cities eased zoning, and Airbnb transformed every spare room into an income stream. A single weekend of tourists could earn what a family used to pay in monthly rent. Tourism quickly became Spain's lifeline, producing more than 12% of the GDP. But the short-term miracle came with a long-term cost. Local shops closed, replaced by vacation hotels. Downtown neighborhoods turned into ghost sets between tourist seasons. In places like Barcelona, the sound of suitcase wheels replaced children's laughter. By 2024, more than 94 million visitors came to Spain, 10 times the population of its largest cities. The richer the tourism sector grew, the poorer its workers felt. Spain had rescued its economy, but lost its soul. And for the next generation, even survival became uncertain. Spain's youth call themselves La Generación Perdida, the lost generation. For them, the crash wasn't a memory, it was the foundation they grew up on. Even with education, jobs are scarce or underpaid. Over a quarter of young Spaniards remain unemployed, and rent devours whatever income they manage to earn. 2/3 still live at home, not by choice, but necessity. With no security, few start families. The birth rate has plunged to one of Europe's lowest. Entire rural provinces are emptying out, towns fading as young people flee abroad for opportunity. An aging workforce, shrinking population, paralysed housing, a nation slowly suffocating in its own imbalance. When leaders finally acted, their promised reforms sparked a new kind of chaos. Under pressure, Spain passed its headline reform, La Ley de Vivienda, meant to make renting fair again. It capped rents, fined owners for leaving homes empty, and boosted tenant protections. The intention? Give ordinary families a break. In practice, it did almost the opposite. Landlords withdrew properties or switched to tourist rentals. Long-term supply fell, demand surged, prices climbed even faster. Add to that Spain's slow eviction laws, where squatters or non-paying tenants can occupy homes for months, and landlords simply gave up. The result? More tension, fewer options, and an even tighter housing noose. And while citizens argued about blame, foreign capital quietly stepped in to buy what was left. Global investors saw opportunity in chaos. Hedge funds from London, pension groups from New York, and European conglomerates began buying entire blocks of apartments at post-crash prices. Locals called them fondos buitre, vulture funds. They renovated a few units, sold others, and left many sitting empty as assets waiting to rise in value. Soon, these investors weren't only in housing. They were buying into energy, utilities, banks, reshaping who really controlled Spain's economy. To the government, this money looked like rescue capital. To residents, it felt like surrender. By 2025, nearly 1/3 of urban housing projects had foreign ownership behind them. At night, entire luxury towers glowed dark, investments without lives inside. Spain had defended its independence for centuries. Now it was quietly being bought, one property at a time. The public mood boiled over. In 2025, Spain proposed a radical new law: 100% tax on property bought by non-EU residents living abroad. Supporters hailed it as justice. Critics called it economic suicide. International banks warned it would crash development, but millions of Spaniards didn't care. They just wanted their country back. Embassies complained, news outlets screamed, Spain turns on foreign buyers. But for locals, it was about dignity. Streets once filled with families now catered only to those passing through. Spain's most famous landmarks were surrounded by banner ads for luxury apartments no citizen could afford. Homes glistened empty while native workers shared rooms. Culture became an export commodity. And all the while, tourists kept arriving. smiling in selfies against the backdrop of a nation quietly slipping away. Spain remains stunning. Golden coastlines, mountain villages, markets alive with colour. From afar, it still looks like Eden. But Eden has a cost. For 2 generations, the country traded sustainability for spectacle. It built an economy that dazzles outsiders while draining its citizens. The housing crisis has evolved into a cultural reckoning, a question of identity. Once, Spain's pride came from community and belonging. Today, it's from property values and tourist rankings. Cities that once pulsed with local life now sell a curated version of themselves to visitors who'll leave by next week. Some hope new laws and tourism limits will fix the imbalance. Others believe the shift runs too deep. But Spain's real rescue won't come from taxes or tourism boards. It will come from remembering what made it whole. Homes for its people, not portfolios for strangers. Because paradise isn't paradise if the locals can't live there. So next time you see the crowded beaches of Barcelona or a perfect photo of Madrid's plazas, remember, these aren't just attractions. They're someone's hometown. Or at least they were. Spain still sells the dream. But for millions who live there, the dream has slipped away.